What's up, 11D Lifers? Matt here. Welcome to this week's episode of 11D Life. I could not be happier that you are here. I love being able to spend a little bit of time with you guys every week, and I'm very grateful for those of you who decide to waste a little portion of their week on me, on our band, on unicorns, and everything frivolous. This week's episode, I have something so incredibly fun and special for you. If you are a fan of 11tyseven, you're a fan of this podcast, and you follow the band, a lot of you are familiar with a song that we wrote about 6 years ago called Appalachian Wine. So we released this on an album called Attack of the Mountain Medley in honor of the anniversary, the weird 6-year anniversary of this, and also because my good friend Jeff Winter has sort of been requesting this on and off for a while, and I feel like he deserves something at this point for all of the love and affection that he gives to our band. I am making this entire episode about this EP that we put out called Attack at the Mountain Medley. It's a complete oddity within our discography of what we did with 11D, or what we're doing with 11D still. And we have done rundowns and walkthroughs of a lot of the album. Well, that's not true. We've done a walkthrough of the most recent record that we did, Rad Science, and we've talked on the podcast before about some of the other records that we've made and songs that we've written, some that are fan favorites, some that we just really like ourselves, and just kind of walked through the creative process of doing that. That's kind of what I want to do with this episode, is just sort of take a minute to revisit on the 6-year anniversary of Attack of the Mountain Medley, the creation of that album, because it was a little complicated and sort of weird, and the rest of the band didn't have a lot to do with the creation of that record. It was primarily just me, and if there's one thing I could go back and change about it, it would probably be that. I wish that I knew how to be more inclusive. So yeah, we're going to talk about what was going on with the band a little bit there. But anyway, before we get into today's episode, I want to thank everyone who is hitting the subscribe button on 11D Life. There are new members, new ones of you happening every week, and we take notice, and we're looking at the numbers and watching them grow. And I just want to extend a heartfelt thank you from me to you, because I know that space on your iPhone is at a premium if you take as many videos and pictures with yours as I do. And so us being able to have any sort of real estate in your car, on your iPhone, any of the places that you listen to podcasts means an awful lot to us, and we don't take it for granted. So we try to give you exactly what you're asking for. A huge shout out to everybody who is hanging out at the 11D Life Facebook group. Man, you guys are so much fun. I know Emily is heading off to college here pretty soon. Emily, best wishes. I hope that you have the time of your life. I know it's kind of scary, like transitioning and moving into a new phase, especially living out, I would imagine, like living all the way out in Alaska. I guess coming stateside. I know Alaska's a U.S. state, but it just feels kind of weird because it does seem like a whole other country. We've got to play a few shows in Alaska, actually, and we have some of our best memories of doing touristy things in Alaska. I actually once challenged Lecrae to a rap battle in Alaska. He politely declined. I think we may have talked about that story on the podcast before. But anyway, I wish you all the best over the next 4 years of your life, Emily. Yeah, have a good time. Hey, another thing that we have going on that I cannot wait to share with you all is that we're going to be doing a karaoke competition. And I recently on the 11tyseven Facebook asked everyone if you could do one karaoke song, what would it be from the Rad Science album? And it seems like so far the feedback that I've gotten is overwhelmingly that people want to try their hand at 1990 Awesome, which I totally get because I think it's kind of fun. And we've been rehearsing some live stuff here at the Rock Candy Studios for the past couple weeks, and that's been really fun too. That song has been really fun for me to sing as well. So yeah, it's looking like that one's probably going to be the winner. And man, I would just say go ahead and get your karaoke chops just like ready to go, because this competition is going to be pretty much who can come up with the craziest, most outlandish video karaoke presentation of you doing this song. So go ahead and get your get your creative wheels spinning, because at the end of the day, in this competition, we are kind of looking to be completely weirded out by how awesome all of you guys are. I don't know if that means that you have to pretend that, I don't know if that means you have to break into an equestrian center and put horns on ponies and ride them around illegally, or if it means that you have to go battle Thanos for an Infinity Stone to be able to make the world right again with lame-ass 11tyseven songs. I don't know. Whatever you decide to do, I'm sure that it's going to be weird and wild and wacky and fun, and I can't wait to see it. That's one of the best parts of being in a band, is seeing how much weirder everyone is than you, because where I come from, I was pretty much the weirdest one that I can remember. So the weirder that you are, the more amongst friends that you are at the same time. At least here in 11ty land, the rest of the world doesn't work that way, but that is okay. I want to let you know that at the very end of today's episode, we are going to be debuting a brand new version of Appalachian Wine that is going to be included on the 11tyseven Rad Science B-Sides album that comes out. Now, everybody that backed the Kickstarter for us in 2017 is going to get this EP for free. You will be getting a download link to it. So don't worry, it's already on its way. I just wanted to do something kind of special for the 11ty Life audience, because you guys make it so much fun to be doing this, and you give incredible feedback, and you're such a fun and friendly community. And hey, guess what? It's also taking us way longer than I thought in typical 11tyseven fashion to release any sort of music. So I would like to extend an olive branch to everyone who is super pissed off that we haven't put anything out, as we promised, since we put out Rad Science. So all that to say, stick around for the very end of the episode, where we will be debuting a new, I don't even want to say updated, or I just want to say it's a different version of Appalachian Wine, in which, we throw all of the typical 11ty fare at it, synthesizers and samples and all kinds of goodness, and mix in a little bit of the old track too. And so this was kind of just a fun experimentation for us to do for that song, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Anyway, I'm rambling, and let's get on with today's episode. So, on August 17th of 2012, we released an album called Attack of the Mountain Medley, and it has, for whatever reason, unbeknownst to me, and people have had to sort of let me in on this over the past few years, it's kind of become one of the most popular releases on Spotify and iTunes that we've ever done, and I can honestly say it was one of the releases that we put the least amount of work into. It was basically us taking a swing at writing some country or folk material, and we just thought that would be sort of fun. I had just recently moved to the mountains. I was being completely inundated and surrounded by all of this bluegrass and folk music, and it was like really hard to escape. And if you live anywhere in or around Asheville, North Carolina, or the Western North Carolina area, man, it is kind of hard to escape on the weekends. There is just so much talent, bluegrass pickers, and even like folk historians around here that will just sort of pop up from time to time at different shows that you go to. It really is a sort of magical place, and I love living here. There's something so fun about the mountains and so inspiring about the mountains. And for those of you who are songwriters, you'll probably get this. Like there are just some spaces that you can go to, some places that you can be in that just sort of make you think about the world differently, or that focus all the things happening in your mind in a different way. There's something about the sights and sounds and smells and quietness and calm of this particular piece of land on the planet that I feel like is different than any other place that I've been. And we've traveled the world, not the whole thing, but a lot of it, wherever there are hotels, we've been there. And so I found myself at this really sort of fun, creative place where I was like, let me just try to sort of channel this and just try to interpret what I'm doing, and up until that point in 11ty, we've been throwing synthesizers and guitars at every single thing that we had done. And it just seemed like we kept heading in that direction. And not to mention, we had just played, I think what would have been our final show in Germany together. And you guys probably heard us talk about that on the podcast as well. Like, me and John and Davey were both playing in the middle of this gigantic cathedral that they had sort of hollowed out for a rock show, and just kind of looking at each other mid-performance and just like not feeling it. Just something was gone, something was missing, something was not right. I was just succumbing to such immense disappointment in myself. I mean, we'd literally crossed every box off of what I thought when I was younger I'd wanted to do in my career, and it seemed like everything in life was keeping me from being able to do it. And I think that the guys in the band also sort of felt that stress. We had just come out of all of these awful management situations, and just trying to sort through all of that and see what our next steps as adults were in life. So anyway, I had been living in actually Black Mountain, North Carolina for a little bit. Just decided that I was going to do, we had already started this sort of EP series idea in our minds, and it was like, oh, cool, let's do 5 songs that are folk and acoustic. Let's do 5 old hymns that we all grew up on. And let's do 5 Christmas songs and just kind of see where that went. And at this point, I think I had probably become so difficult to deal with that even if I had have tried to get anybody to come into the studio to hang out with me, it would have been such a powder keg of pressure on everybody to have to sit in a room and work with me, because I feel like at the time I worked so much better alone, and I like spending time with myself, getting my thoughts out and exploring them. And I kind of feel like when I was writing these songs in particular, I just sort of felt like if I don't have somebody here in the room with me to sort of bounce ideas off of, I have to sort of become all these different people. I have to become the person that hates my idea. I have to become the person that would think about it this way or that would think about it in a new way. So I kind of end up splitting myself into these weird multiple personalities where I'll come up with an idea and then I'll come up with a character or a personality to sort of fight that idea and move it around into wherever it's going to end up. Yeah, it's a weird way of writing, but I do know that I remember very clearly, it felt hard to get started working on these songs. But at the end of the process, looking back on it, I wrote this whole thing in maybe a couple of weeks, which is not common for me. I mean, most of the time I'll get a song idea out really quickly, and then I'll spend sometimes a month, like going through lyrics or moving melodies around or changing the production on things, and I'll be working on songs like in parallel with each other. It's not like I just stop everything and just work on a song a month. I'm working on batches of songs at a time, which is where I guess we get our albums from, instead of kind of going the new route, which is just constant singles and constantly staying in front of people. So the first song on this record is called Long Way Down, and I looking back on it now, it sort of sums up a lot of the disillusionment. It's sort of written to be a cautionary tale, or maybe a whole lot of different stories all kind of woven together that are just like with this narrative that life is not what you think it's going to be. Love is not what you think it's going to be. Your career is not. The dreams that you've poured yourself into are not going to pan out the way that you think they will. And the songs that you write won't end up the way that you want them to, or won't land in the ears of other people the same way that you want them to. And so it's just all these different little anecdotal stories. And gosh, like the first opening line of that song, one time I shook hands with a pirate. That was actually it was actually a metaphor for the people that we had run into in life or in Nashville, and that whole scene of just feeling like you're constantly meeting people that are promising you to fulfill your hopes and dreams, and to like, I get where you're coming from, and here's what's going to take to get to this next level in your career. And by the time that you actually get there, you're too stressed out enjoy it. I don't know. It's kind of like buying something and realizing it's something totally different at the end of the day. And the music industry is sort of that same way, not to discourage anybody from getting into it, because it can be one of the most rewarding and self-actualizing things. But then at the same time, it kind of takes a little bit of your soul. I mean, it's sort of like the soul stone, the Infinity Stones from Marvel Adventures. You have to sacrifice something that you love to recognize an ideal. And it's not always, hardly ever pans out the way that you think it will, because you think, wow, I'm just like so sold on this ideal, or this idea of what my career needs to be, or this idea of what I think my life needs to look like, or what I need to look like as a person. This is what it will take for me to be a fulfilled, self-actualized person. And you sacrifice so many things in life along the way to get there, people and friendships and stability and financial security. And gosh, at the end of the day, it's hard to say that it's worth it, and it's hard to say that it's not worth it, because you only know who you are, who you ended up being, and that that who you ended up being is a better person than you were, but it's a much more broken person than you ever thought you would become. And yeah, maybe that's the best way to sort of sum that song up. It's really depressing, and it's kind of written in a more upbeat and fun, sort of dancey, sing-along sort of way to hide just how depressing the lyrical content of it is. So yeah, that's Long Way Down. The next song that's on that record is called All the Doubt in Town. And maybe you guys have heard me talk about this story before, but I never knew a lot of my grandfathers growing up, except for my dad's dad. And I remember in 2010, this is just, a couple years before I ended up writing this song, he passed away due to a heart condition. And I feel like there were times in my life where I tried to reach out to him, or tried to connect with him, tried to, I don't know, just have normal conversations. It's like hard when you're a teenager growing up and you realize that you and your parents, and much less your grandparents, just don't speak the same language. And when you're asking them to tell you stories, they have so much baggage that comes with that. And when you're trying to really figure out who these people are on a fundamental level, that becomes really hard too, because you have to ask the right questions. You have to be in the right place at the right time. You have to put in the time to be a safe person for people to open up to you. And I just don't think I ever had that with my grandfather. Needless to say, I always remember him as being such a kind and stable person. I never remember him being angry or upset. It was always my grandmother who kind of seemed to be the more emotionally volatile one of the couple. And so I think for one of these song ideas, I kind of sat down one day and started just playing around with the chord progression. And then I thought, you know what, why don't I just kind of fill in these gaps, fill in these imaginary, or fill in these holes with imaginary dirt. Or there has to be a better metaphor for that, but to fill in the gaps with something. My gaps in knowledge of like who he was and what he loved and what he cared about and what he was passionate about, and were there dreams that he gave up on. And I didn't really understand my grandparents' relationship together. Like, they loved each other, and they were both, I feel like they both gave to each other different things that they needed in terms of like stability. And yeah, I don't even know. I don't even want to venture to say. I'm talking about these people's lives who I only knew very little of them. And I think that's what prompted me to create a fictitious retelling of how they came to be, because I have no idea. So essentially what I ended up doing was taking all of my best childhood memories of my grandparents and writing this fictional narrative of how they got together and ultimately, I guess, sort of how their lives ended, or how their marriage ended, their relationship ended in death. And man, there's still so many times where I am playing that song, or I'm rehearsing, or I'm writing. This is one of those songs where if I'm sitting down and I'm alone and I'm by myself and I just want to feel the visceral action of my fingers on strings and singing something and telling a story, I feel like I end up singing this song to myself, because at this point in life, like hopefully I'm I'm nowhere near the end of mine, but I've lived long enough to see so many marriages end, so many people give up on love for each other. So many people realize that love is not what they thought it was, or that relationships are not what they thought it was, or just have a complete redefinition of the things that are important to them in their lives. And this is always the song that sort of comes out first, because I want to believe in this kind of love. I want to believe in this narrative. I want to believe that it ends. I want to believe that people can stay together, and that the only thing that really will tear them apart is death, that it's not all the other things. I don't know. It's not all the other petty things like disagreements and all the weird residue that just builds up in friendships and in relationships over the years. I want to believe that there's something ultimately that is able to cut through all of that, hold us together, hold people together, hold love together. So yeah, that's sort of what this song is about. Yeah, essentially just a guy deciding that no matter who does not believe in his love for another person, even if it's the person that he loves doesn't believe in him or doesn't have faith in him, that he's still going to prove them wrong, that he still believes in his love and his decision and his affection for this person so strongly that it's going to be his guiding star, his guiding light. It's going to be his moral compass in all of these different decisions in life. I know that it doesn't work out that way most of the time in real life, but there's something magical about that thought that just kind of keeps me hanging on to it. It's a unicorn of a thought, and I love it. So the next song on the album, Nobody's Business, is sort of just like, I can't even believe that we got away talking about some of the stuff that we talk about in this song. There's prostitutes in trailer parks, and there's kids like hotboxing in cars in this. I think I grew up in the South in a very rural community, and like we're always either in or around trailer parks, and trailer parks always kind of have this special place in my mind or in my heart, because so much of the rural South is comprised of them. And there's so much shit that goes on in trailer parks. And I understand completely why they get a bad rap because there's a lot of meth labs and drug dens and prostitution rings that happen within trailer parks. But gosh, that's not always the case. And I just thought, man, I don't know. I think being from the South, I see a completely different side of that, where it's like, yes, it can be shady. Yes, there can be drugs. Yes, there can be like all of these really scary things that happen within those confines. But for a lot of people growing up, trailer parks are your first sort of idea of community or of neighborhood. It's your neighborhood. When you're watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, you're like, my neighborhood doesn't quite look like that. People aren't as friendly. Like, you don't just like walk up to Mr. McFeely doesn't just walk up with a new thing to tell you about that day. Like there's a completely different social dynamic. And so I don't know. I just thought it would be kind of fun to revisit all of those weird little things that as a kid, you don't really notice are going on around you. But then as you get older, you're like, oh my gosh, wow, this is interesting. What happens when you get older and you realize like, oh my gosh, there are different tax brackets. There are people within certain socioeconomic statuses, and this is what life looks like for them. And this is why like all of your friends seem to be viewing life and their future so differently, because they don't have a lot of these weird confines that you find within these sorts of areas, within like low income areas. So anyway, I think I'd also had a few conversations with some people that had spoken pretty poorly of trailer parks. And I was like, yeah, you actually don't understand that this is a completely different social dynamic that you don't have an insight into and that you don't quite get, that you only sort of hear, the headlines that come out of trailer parks and the people that get interviewed after tornadoes have swept their trailer parks away. And you forget that these are people and that they are experiencing life and they're seeing it through a different lens. And yeah, so I just thought maybe it would be cool to sort of, I don't know, put a set of binoculars on this fictitious trailer park that I made up in my mind that was an amalgamation or a mixture of all of my experiences within them. So yeah. So the first line in the song, or the first verse, it sort of talks about this moonshine still, and possibly blowing yourself up is a real thing, especially in the mountains of Appalachia. It's there are lots of folks around here that make their own moonshine, and the fall is normally the best time to get it because everybody's sort of spent the summer making it. And so our winters are full of different people sort of handing us moonshine or gifting moonshine during Thanksgiving or Christmas. And it's always super fun, but it is a dangerous thing to make if you don't know what you're doing. And so that it's actually, maybe it's a little bit of a cautionary tale. It's because we actually do know we actually have had stories close to where we lived in Asheville that of people sort of blowing up their trailers or their sheds attempting to make moonshine for the first time. And so it is not for the faint of heart if you're deciding on being a bootlegger to some extent. So anyway, I think it's a pretty fun song, but I don't think we've ever played it live actually. And maybe we never will. But I don't know. Maybe we'll play it at the Christmas party. So the next song on the record is "And I'm a Mormon." So I got a little bit of hate mail, and I don't know if I could release this song in today's climate and have people not hate me for it. But essentially, this was... I don't know if any of you are Mormon or if you have sort of dug into the Mormon religion. The idea behind this song is that, you can take Mormonism or you could take any sort of mainstream organized religion and you could just lay everything that they believe out on a table and it would sound like the craziest thing to you depending on where you were coming at it from. If you were coming from a different religion, you would say, well, gosh, I've been brought up my entire life to believe this shit is crazy. But the fact is that in most religions, there's so much that just gets lumped into, we believe all this crazy shit because we choose to have faith in it, or because we choose to stop our questions here, or because we find peace in just accepting these things as truth and just leave us alone and let us chill here for a minute. And that's sort of it. There's nothing nefarious in my intent in writing this song. It was actually just making fun of this marketing campaign that the Mormons had at the time that was really popular. And it was basically, they released all of these different ads and videos online and on television. And I'm not really sure why they were doing it or why they decided to throw a huge marketing budget behind their religion. Maybe it had something to do with the political thing that was happening at the time. But these commercials, if you have a chance to look them up, I'm pretty sure you could YouTube them. They are kind of amazing because it's basically the Mormon religion taking all of these different people from different walks of life and even some high profile, like musicians and actors and actresses, and basically saying like, I've got a completely normal life. I'm just like you. I'm absolutely like you. I have a family. I have kids. I have struggles. I have bills. And I have this community with Mormons, and you wouldn't believe how normal of a person I am. And also, I'm Mormon. It was just sort of like this whole bait and switch thing. Like, you might have some weird thoughts about Mormons, but would you have even known I was Mormon if you hadn't watched this commercial to the very end of it? Probably not. So I don't know. It's just weird posturing for the Mormons to sort of have this, I don't know, this ad campaign for your religion. And I get it. Like to some degree, like having grown up in Protestant Christian America, I can understand that. But you're almost kind of sort of admitting to everyone like, yeah, we believe some pretty weird shit, but look how normal we are. Look how functional we are in society. And it just, I don't know. It sort of felt like either 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or, it's this idea of pulling the old bait and switch but with your religion. Like, oh, isn't this life that you can have amazing? Oh, by the way, this thing. And it's not like all this information is not there for you to look up. I mean, you can literally look up on Wikipedia just the basic tenets of Mormonism, where it came from. You read about Joseph Smith. South Park has a pretty amazing episode about the Mormon religion, which makes fun of it way better than we ever could. So yeah, there's that. I did get some hate mail from some Mormons who were like, basically like, fuck you, you don't know us, you don't know what we're about. And I was like, yeah, but I actually do. Like, I looked it up on Wikipedia. And I also talked to some people that were, just to make sure. So I did my research, but I promise you, I'm just making fun of your religion because they decided to put out an ad campaign that was just so funny. I think that if you're having a great time within the Mormon religion, within the Mormon faith, ride that as long as you can. I mean, we're all just trying to get there. We're all just trying to figure out what that thing is that gives us a quality of life and that gives us hope and direction when we're in the middle of turmoil, and peace in the midst of everything in life trying to take our peace away. So I totally understand it, but just like any religion out there are some bugaboos. There's some weird things that you just kind of have to turn a blind eye to to really be as involved as you can be. So anyway, yeah, no offense meant, but I had a lot of fun. And the other thing too is, like, some of the lyrics, are just, they're so over the top. I mean, like, throwing Pokemon and Optimus Prime and Will Smith and all these different things in there. Like, I wanted to really drive the point home that I was just making fun of the absurdity of these commercials I was watching. I was not trying to take personal digs at specific Mormons within that religion. But anyway, so I think that I actually think that's really healthy for me in understanding Christianity itself. Is like, the more that I can make, like, there's some things that people find so sacred, and I think that the second that someone wants to call something sacred, I have a lot of red flags that go up, because it means that they've stopped questioning something a lot of times, or it could also mean that they have a lot of hangups, about that, or they're afraid for this thing to not be sacred. They're afraid for this thing to not be important to them. Or maybe if this thing can be made fun of and can be debunked, or can be thought about in a different way, then all of a sudden it sort of acts like a domino effect to the rest of the beliefs that they have in their life. And I think that's true of anything, but I also love the domino effect. I mean, at this point in my life, I've deconstructed so much of what I believe, and now I feel like most of my energies go into just finding the things that I really do enjoy, the things that really do bring me peace, the narratives that I do think are really powerful. But I take so much more joy in going through the process of deconstructing things, of finding out, well, why can't we make fun of this? Why can't we make fun of this story or of this deity? Or, like, this is kind of hilarious. Like, I feel like there's humor written into everything. There's one thing that is true, is that you can sort of take any religion that you want to in the world, and you can find something really absurd and funny about it. And the more disparate that you get in your religious beliefs, like, the conflict that gets created in positioning a Buddhist against a Christian, or a Christian against a Hindu, or a Taoist against a Satanist. I mean, I just think that they have such profoundly similar and dissimilar ways of looking at life, so much more in common than they think they have, and so much more pronounced differences than maybe they think they have too. Anyway, I just think it's funny, and I have to find the joke in it somewhere. If I can't find the thing that makes it funny, then it's too serious. And then it feels like the pressure is too much. The weight is too great of the thing. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit esoteric with it now. We can move on. The last song on this album is called Appalachian Wine, and it is hands down probably the most popular song that we have in our discography that we've written so far, that I don't think that has anything to do with us. It literally is just, I don't have an explanation for why this song gets streamed like head and shoulders above all of the other ones that we've written. I literally just sat down one day with a guitar, much in the same way that All the Doubt in Town was written. And I just thought, what if I were to sort of take, I don't know, like a Native American narrative for where the elements come from and for what God is, and personify all of these different things and write about them as if they're people. And one of the things that I found was they were very specific. Like when I thought about wind and fire and earth and time, there were these very specific people that started to come to mind that I felt like embodied these ideas or these ideals or what I thought in my imagination that they would be like. And then I thought about all of them within a family unit. I thought about my own family and my extended family and different people that I knew that sort of fit the narrative for these things. Like there are people that are sometimes really hard to get along with in any family. And when you reach a certain age, you sort of look back on the way that you were raised or the way that your siblings were raised and the different decisions that you all made and the different personalities that you had that were forming when you were younger, but are now in your younger but older years, like much more pronounced. And yeah, I don't know. I think we can get super distracted looking too far into the past and trying to make too much sense out of the past and not look forward enough to whatever's next or to just be present in the moment. I have a hard time with that too. But specifically within this song, it just, I don't know, it just sort of started to make sense and come out. And I just kept writing until I felt like the story was interesting. And I feel like this story itself has sort of played out many, many times, maybe going back to this whole narrative of love. I want to believe in the end that love wins. I want to believe that no matter what the relationship is or what the friction or the tension is, there's some people that are born with such want. There are people that I know. I'm one of those people, I think, two other people in my life. I'm never satisfied. I'm never content. I'm constantly trying to become content with something, trying to find peace. And I feel like I catch glimpses of it. I feel like I catch moments of it, but I'm never, if you were to, Rob Johnson and I talk about this all the time as a guest host that we had on the podcast for many episodes. I think we're constantly looking for the next thing to create, for the next story to tell, because there's such fulfillment in the fire of it, in the fire of making or creating or coming across an idea that you think is really powerful and then trying to translate that idea. But those moments happen so few and far between and require so much work and dedication and discipline to be able to channel those moments when they happen, that I think it's just so easy to feel, defeated in a lot of ways. But yeah, like thinking about the kids or the elemental kids within this song, I just think, man, that's part of a coming of age is figuring out what element you are. Do you burn too hot? Are you too cold? And then I guess life sort of beats you down. life sort of tempers you to be something manageable. And if you don't become that manageable thing, you may ultimately end up hurting the people that you love and that you care for the most. I don't know. This is what I was thinking when I wrote the song. I know that it means, or I've heard via emails and fan mail and stuff that we've gotten over the years, that means totally different things to different people, and different people connect with it in different ways. And I love that. I don't ever want to. This is why I don't really enjoy talking about the origin of some songs or talking through lyrics really specifically, because sometimes I feel like it can take away from maybe what somebody else wants to get out of, or diminish something a connection that they felt with the thing, because it's not mine anymore. It belongs to whoever's listening to it. That narrative, those words, just those letters all mushed together mean something different to somebody else than they mean to me. And I totally understand that, and I want to honor that and respect that. So yeah. So anyway, that's Appalachian Wine. I sometimes have a hard time playing that song and getting through it without tearing up, because it just reminds me of all the different people that I've seen sort of battle their own demons, and the people that I've seen try to love others through their demons, and just this weird human toll that we take on each other in life. And if there's one thing I know that's true, it's that I think that story is going to keep happening over and over again. It's sort of just reminding myself of this cyclical narrative of life. It just, not to be Lion Kingy about it, but to me, that was, if I could sum up what I believe the circle of life is in one song, it would probably be Appalachian Wine. So yeah, anyway. So that's pretty much that. And because this episode is me literally in the studio, just trying to psych myself up and play devil's advocate with myself and come up with things to talk about for this episode. Jeff Winter, this one's for you, man. I kind of wish that I could have just had you in the studio and we could have talked about it together. It is what it is, and life is going to be what it's going to be. This record had the least amount of budget that we've ever had for an album. It's the one that we recorded on. We recorded this album on the least expensive, crappiest equipment of anything that we've ever done in our career. And for some reason, it outstreams everything that we actually spend money on trying to make sound good or interesting. And I always use that in the back of my mind as this sort of guiding compass. It's like, doesn't really matter how much you spent on a microphone or on a preamp. What matters is just getting alone by yourself and coming up with an idea that you feel really strongly about and whittling away at that idea until you feel like you can present it in the best way possible, and then let it go. Every single track that is not a pre-existing sample on this song was recorded with a $200 blue baby bottle microphone that you can pick up at Guitar Center. I recorded guitars and drum samples and vocals and pretty much like everything that had to do with this record on that one microphone, and just kept stacking and layering it. I think that the strings on Appalachian Wine came from like a string sampling instrument that I had in Pro Tools. The bass, I think, was Davey's bass that he left in the studio for us to record with. It was like probably the same one that he recorded Sugar Fist with. Yeah, it was that. I mean, we didn't even send these. I mixed the whole thing myself. I mastered the whole thing myself, and it was because we were broke at that point in the band. We had like, we all hated each other. We were on speaking terms, and we were like trying to hang out and have fun together. But I think we brought so much baggage and so many bad memories. We reminded each other of so many bad memories that we had to figure out a way to be ourselves apart from each other. And that's why not a lot of the other members had a part in doing this record. And I wish that things had been different. I wish that our relationships had been in different places. I wish that I could have had John and Davey in the studio with me writing these songs, because I don't think they feel any ownership in these songs whatsoever. I mean, I feel good about them. I love the songs themselves, but the recordings, the actual physical product that we made for Attack of the Mountain Medley, I just regret us not being able to all have fond memories of it. And if I could go back in time, that would be what I would change. I don't know how I would do it, or or even if it would work, or even if my best plans at attempting it would work. But damn, I would try. So yeah, let me just take a minute and give a huge thank you to everybody that has ever sent me fan mail about these songs, because you're very kind and very sweet to do so. And I love making songs that that become something for other people, because once they're gone, once they're released, they don't belong to me anymore. And in the same way that I love making memories to other people's songs, I just hope that people enjoy doing that to mine. And as long as people are doing that, and as long as I'm getting joy from writing these songs, I guess I'll keep doing it. And yeah, so without further ado, you've listened to me ramble and rant about this weird ass record that we made, this like blip in our discography that doesn't sound like anything else we've done. And so I am going to debut our sort of synthified, electrified version of Appalachian Wine now on the podcast. Hey, if you like this song, or you feel like, hey, I really want a recording of that, awesome. You're going to be able to get it for free on Spotify. We're going to throw it up on iTunes if you actually want to own the download for it. And we're going to have more information about that coming really, really soon, because I promise we're almost done with this B-Sides album. And I can't wait to let it go into the 11D family and have you guys do with it what you want. Anyway, I hope that you enjoy this rendition of Appalachian Wine. And there's some tasty little guitar bits brought to you by none other than Price Stevens, who I'm sure you guys have heard on the podcast before. An amazing guitar player, and we had a super fun time just sort of coming up with weird little odds and ends and bits for it. So anyway, here's the new version of Appalachian Wine. We love y'all. See you next week.
Mother Earth and Father father time.